and we're going to see how far our dollars will stretch. And so then there are some options that Daryl will be going over with you. So thanks for being here. Daryl, the time is yours.
Okay, so just to make life a little easier, there's an all-staff email going out right now that will have a copy of this presentation and also the link to the broadcast recording, all that jazz. So I know some people like to be able to see what they're looking at because the big screen's a little too big or too far, whatever you want to do, that's on you. Just reiterating what Mr. Larson stated, a lot of this is, it's fluid. They're estimates, and take them as an estimate. Some of the figures we used are state estimates. So we then need to just keep that in mind. Are you serious? Don't worry, I'm that good today. Let's try round 2 on that. Okay, now there should be an attachment. Sorry about that. Thanks for the catch, Nicole. Okay, so for starters, working with the MCEA, we wanted to do a survey to kind of gauge your guys' priorities. That way, both sides can fully represent you to what your priorities and needs are. So the survey in the end that will be coming out from the MCEA after this meeting will be very straightforward, but it's going to be a ranking of please rank your priorities, right? What is needed for you, your family, your situations. And like Mr. Larson said, we're going to try to get our dollars to stretch as far as we can to handle the topmost priorities. With this, you have to keep in mind this district staffs over 700 employees, right? So what you may feel as your biggest priority may not be the same priorities as the other part of the staff. And again, as a district, we have to represent our staff in whole, so usually that means going with the majority, right? At the same time, we do not want to hurt the minority by any means, so we're trying to look at it from all views and aspects. So these are kind of the areas that we're going to have on that survey, just different areas, and we're going to cover all of them today. But at the end, there's also an other line. If you have something else that we don't cover or an idea you want to throw out, by all means, write that into your survey so we can look into that and see if it's an optional option, if we can make it happen, or if there's something we totally spaced or forgot. Okay, for starters, like Mr. Larson said, we're going to go over just a little bit of how we get our funding. You guys should be semi-familiar with this. This is our support unit calculation. So when we get funding from the state, everything is tied or based off of a support unit. Support units are generated based off of our enrollment and our average daily attendance. In the past, enrollment was much nicer to us. Average daily attendance, not so much now. So I've got some numbers in here. These are just what we had calculated for this year. This is what each school is generating based off of those first 9 weeks that the students attend. Those first 9 weeks dictate the snapshot and the funding that we get for that year, right? So again, this is why admin and staff and everybody are pushing so hard for students to be in seats those first 9 weeks. So just to kind of run through it, to give an example. So if I just look at a kindergarten class right here. So a Sequest Kinder, they had 40 enrolled. Good heavens, good luck to you guys. Their ADA, so average daily attendance, they had roughly 37.9 kids a day showing up to class, right? There's some other factors in here that they pull off their exceptional calculation that kind of goes into some other areas. But the big piece is right here, this factor, 40. It takes 40 kindergartners to make one support unit, right? In other areas you can see it takes 23, it takes 18, 12. It all depends on the different types of class or different types of program there. But for like a kindergarten class, you need 40 kids to show up on a daily basis to create one support unit. The state, in the end down here, we're going to have about 202.52 support units. Okay, and this is what we use to then start building budgets. Support units are then calculated into their FTE equivalencies. If we look right here across the top, an admin is a 0.075, instructional FTE is 1.021, pupil service staff 0.079, and then a classified of 0.375. Okay, they take these numbers or these ratios and multiply it by those support units to then determine how many staff the state will pay for in our schools or in our areas. Okay, so if we look at this, the state's going to fund us for about 15 admin, 222 teachers and support staff, and then 75 classified staff, classified FTEs. One thing that you have to keep in mind, and a caveat on this, is when the state funds, they don't fund it entirely. So if we take a teacher's salary, we've got some that are down in the 47s, 50s, that range clear up to 75, right? The state pays on an average. They will take an average teacher's salary, and that is what they pay us per FTE. So we win some, we lose some. Some teachers are fully paid for, some teachers are not. That's kind of the deal. Same thing with admin. They give us an average amount, and they pay us that average, even though it doesn't fully cover what we staff. So at any point in time, there's always overspill from this that we have to fund out of our general fund, discretionary or operational dollars. Okay. Up to this point, questions on understanding that? I want to make sure everybody kind of has an idea or grasp of that before I move on. Okay. Say that again. What do we have now when it comes to which piece? So teachers, they allocate 222.77 teachers. It was basically that same amount last year, and that's why we had that cut from last year to this year, right? So again, it was one of those, this is what the state funds, so we needed to get down to this amount last year so we're not hurting this year, right? So that's again why last year was such a drastic year, is with trying to get in line with some of this. Okay, next step, defining a one-step versus two-step when we are talking about the survey. Please note, these are to be determined salary schedules. Again, it all has to go to negotiations. These are just tentatives that the state handed out. But a one-step to a two-step, let's say you're on a P1 right now, you're being funded or paid at a P1. The state funds us currently at that P2 because we froze, right? The state was able to move one step last year while we stayed still. This is giving us that gap right now to help make sure budgets meet and we tie everything out. If we do a one-step, both the state and us should move one step. I cannot guarantee the state when it comes to these changes in rungs of R3 to P1 or P5 to an AP1 type in area, right? That's all determined based off of your evaluations and other criteria. If the state doesn't move, then really you probably will not move with that, but that's those pieces there. But ideally, if we do a one step, we're still going to be one step behind the state and continually there. When on the survey, we talk about a two-step. This is where, again, you're paid at a P1, the state's paying at a P2. The state will move to a P3 and fund at a P3, but we're going to bump you two steps and get you back in line with the state, is what we want to do on that, right? So just for an understanding of one step to two step, when you go to put it on your priority, that is what it would be looking at. This next one here is a piece that Ellen was kind enough to throw out ideas, and we were able to brainstorm how this may or may not work. Okay, so please note that this is still just a possibility. All of it depends on staff decisions of what they would want to do. It pertains to classified that are currently working 7.5 hours a day. 7.5 hours a day would get them over that 30-hour threshold, which makes them benefit eligible. If they were to cut half an hour a day, that would take them below the benefit eligibility, but we are thinking of doing a compensation of $3 pay raise to offset that. This came because we have some classified that would much prefer to have a current dollars in their pocket versus a secondary insurance where their spouse or somebody else already is providing insurance for them. The thought process that we have on this is treating it a little bit as a grandfathered system. People that choose this year to go into this, that would be where it would be, whether you stay and say, I just want to stay at my current salary and I want 1 or 2 bumps, just give me that and I'll be happy and stick with the insurance. Or they have the option of saying, hey, I'll take the half-hour cut, but the $350 pay raise and move. For these, it's looking anywhere between a $2,000 to $3,000 pay raise just in salaries, but they are going to be taking the loss of insurance. A lot of this comes from each person individually. When we talk about insurance costs, it is anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 per person that is benefit eligible. Okay, so for every person that would want to do the swap, we could roughly be saving anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 after giving them the $350 increase, and that allows us to have a little more dollars that go a little farther and allow a few more options when we deal with insurance in other areas. Oh man, I had a notes up, but it just left my head. Ellen, am I missing anything on that one? Okay. Are there any questions or confusions on this piece? Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back to the other slide? Okay, can you show them the difference
Oh, sorry.
between 24, 25? So when some of them were looking at it, they're not getting a pay increase, and it's because of how the steps are.
Elaborate a little bit more for me, Nicole.
Speak up. Christian said.
I know what you're saying. I forgot what I said. Well, just on some of the runs, like, but I think it's because you are getting rid of P6 that some of those amounts are not changing from like 1-step ladder to 2-step ladders. Like 1 step, for example, AP2, which is rent. It's 17,027, and in the 2 jumps, it's still 70,027. And there was several that were that way. I don't know if that's just because that's state funding or what, but a lot of those are actually the same.
Okay, so iterate that for me one more time. Your AP2 and a 2-step.
Yep, they're both the same amount.
So AP2 going to an AP4. Is that what you're meaning?
Okay, so go back to all 4 of them. Okay, so this is the same as this.
Oh, so your thing that you're seeing, if that's what it is, sorry, just so I can make sense of this, right here, this is a 1-step, right? So this is a 24-25 to 25-26 1-step, just for the colored piece. But if you're looking at just the AP to P, whatever, these salary schedules here repeat here, just for the difference in colors. So if that's the confusion, yes, the AP1 on this side of the 25-26, here, let me zoom back out and get a laser pointer. If you're looking at the AP1 and 2 here, they are going to be the exact same here because that's still the 25-26 tentative state salary schedule, right? So this is just a duplication on both sides just to show the difference in colors of steps is all that is. Did that clarify that, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Did you bring up about the P6?
Oh, for the P6 piece? Okay, so this, again, still all has to go to negotiations, but if you are looking at just the P6 and how that works, the P6 is a grandfathered lane in our salary schedule, right? The P6 is there. When the state got rid of their P6, they took all staff funding back to a P5 level. So those that have been on a P6 the last couple years, the state's only been funding us the $57,000 for a P5, right? They have not kept up with the P6. So in order for us to really kind of get things evened out, it'd be best if we can do away with the P6. Again, this still all has to go to negotiations. But then the P6s would either A, advance to an AP1 due to your criteria and your evaluations, or sadly be stuck still at a P6, which would then turn into a P5. There is still, it's about 25,000 or 2,500 increase between a P6 and the P5 on a state's thing. But again, all of this is still just in the air. Negotiations has to deal with those final figures. Anything else, Nicole?
No.
Okay. Okay, lastly, well, not lastly, but moving on. How we are funded. So, again, the state funds us off of support units. They give us all their support units and tell us how much staffing we should have. When it comes down to actual dollars, it's again by support units. So in here, they are giving us a certain amount of support units, right? This 202.52 is what we have. Our discretionary dollars will be that 202 times this 23,000. Our health insurance funding will be 202 times this 21,000 for a total discretionary or operation budget of 9 million, 21 million, sorry. No, that's 9 million, these are thousands. Good grief. End of the day if you haven't noticed. Then on the second half down here, they give us our what's called the SBA, or our salary-based apportionment. So we are going to get 18 million for our teachers, admin, and classified that were funded on that FTE sheet that we had a couple slides ago. So right here, these staffing that they allow, that is what they're funding, and that funding is this 18 million. In conjunction with that, they will fund this 3.8 million of benefits. All that covers is your Percy and your FICA taxes. Then we have just a few other line items that come in. So some special ed line items of $30,000, and then our transportation reimbursement of 2.2 million. This gives us a total state funding of 33.5 million. Okay. So that is really what we have to cover all of our salaries, benefits, and our operation for the district when it comes to general fund dollars. Yes, we do have SPED dollars and we have federal program dollars. Those are all earmarked and locked into certain spending requirements thanks to federal government. So I cannot really do anything with those. I cannot pull Ellen's federal dollars and say, hey, I'm going to pay for our lights with that. It's just not doable, right? And so this is where some of our limitations start to kick in. So these are just some of, again, our estimated costs, either with a one-step or two-step, and then with the different insurance options. This is just standard, our Blue Cross that we currently have with the ISBT, so Idaho School Board Trust, or with the state's Regent Blue Shield. Salaries are roughly about 21 million. FICA and Percy is 4.3 million. Insurance, depending on what we go for just flat out, 5.3 million versus 6.1 million. My operating costs, I need at least 2.5 million to keep your lights on and keep buses running, keep maintenance running, and all those different little areas, right? When you get down to the bottom line, we got 33 million. How far does this go? You'll see most of it kind of ends up in the red. It's not the most beautiful picture, but it's kind of what the hand we've dealt with this year. A lot of this comes from legislation and how they did it this year. They increased salaries and benefits, but they did not increase discretionary at all. And again, like I said earlier, yeah, we get state funding, but just about everybody kind of falls out of that state funding bucket and into our general fund discretionary operational dollars bucket. So where they didn't increase both sides, that just kind of built a bigger gap. With this, and in talking with Mr. Larson, we know we're going to have to cover around $500,000. It is what it is, right? This is something that we'll have to pull from our fund balance, and thankfully we have a bit of a fund balance to do that, but that is not something that we can sustainably do for a long period of time. So a lot of this comes back to, okay, we can do what we can do this year, and again, we want your priorities for what you need now, but then it also means that we need to look into next year and see how can we operate a little more efficiently in certain areas, right? Yes, ma'am.
The insurance, is that figuring the increase for like the ISBT, is that figuring in the whatever
Yes.
increase from last this
Yep.
year to next year?
In a couple slides, we'll have those increased amounts, but yes, all these figures factor in that state estimated salary schedule and the insurance increases as we have received them from insurance. Moving on to the second piece here, this is again where we do that 7.5 hour classified, moving down to a 7 hour, and this is where that them moving to getting a pay raise of $3.50 versus taking insurance benefits, that trade-off. Again, this is only going to be a possibility based on how many staff actually choose to want to do this. If we only receive 3 or 4 or 5, it's not even going to be an option. But we have about 118 staff that fit this criteria. For each staff, you can roughly figure about $10,000 per person that would like to do this change. And so that can add up pretty quick. At this, we built in estimates at what would it be if 50% of those people wanted to accept this, or what would it be at if 80% of those people wanted to make this handoff. Okay. Again, this is them sacrificing a half hour and insurance for a $3.50 pay raise. Okay. You'll notice between Blue Cross and the state, there's a lot more black, there's a lot more options, but again, this is tied to their willingness to want to do this. Again, it's not something we want to force on. It's going to be, do they want to or not? Yes, ma'am.
Can they look in? Okay, so for example, they say, I want to stay with the insurance right now, but over the summer they find an insurance that they can afford, then can they switch in the fall?
Good question. She's asking if they find an insurance over the summer, are they able to delay this option or choice till the fall? Honestly, the answer is no, because if we are going to do anything with state, that has to be decided before the end of June. And honestly, our insurance renewals also need to happen by that time frame for us to do open enrollment come July, August, right? So really, it's an now or never type of deal. Okay, were there any other questions? Yes. No, you would still have Percy. Sorry, her question was if they voted to go without the insurance and take the pay raise, would that affect their Percy eligibility? No, it does not. You still have enough hours to qualify for Percy, so you'd still have your Percy pension benefits there. It just would be the health, dental, vision, those areas. I do not have a good answer for your public service loan. I don't know how many hours they require. Their staff would still be employed with a public service, but I don't know if they require a full-time employed or part-time or what. So that one I don't know. It's full-time. Do they have their own hour delineation of what they classify full-time? Because I know that would be a difference between different employers, as we have full-time benefit eligibility versus full-time. But that's something we'd have to look into. Say what? If you want to. Yep. Yeah, any governmental agency, there's that. Yeah, it still exists. Thanks. No comment. Okay, the next couple slides deal with insurance options. Again, notice there's a TBD. We do need to still have the insurance committee meetings after this, but we wanted to have the survey results from staff to help better guide that. So for as of right now, FY25 to FY26, the deductibles aren't changing for our PPO or HSA. It's kind of all the same standard. Todd Siemens did give us some different options, both up and down. Again, that will go before the insurance committee to truly decide those types of areas, but just for a quick glimpse, this is what we've got. Overall, we have a 7.18% increase, okay? That's about $71 on your standard employee only plan. If we follow the same suit as last year, it'd probably be passed on to the employee. But again, that's to be determined still down here of how much is the district going to cover, how much does the employee need to cover, right? But roughly, you could think worst case scenario, you take the $71 plus the $2, $3 or $4 that you're paying right now, you could be somewhere in 75 to 78 range per month. Yes. So if you notice, if anybody would be on that family plan, I seriously apologize. That's going to eat your check alive. With this insurance plan, there's not anything I can really do about that. When you look at the HSA, again, it had about a 7.17 increase in interest. That's about $52. Again, what those portions would be would have to go to committee and also to negotiations.
And that also changes our portion that gets put in.
Yes, it also changes the portion that would be the district piece that would go into your HSA contribution, right? Again, that all has to be negotiated in there. Okay, if we look at states, you'll up top they've got their deductibles for either in-network or out-of-network. Down here are also their monthly premiums of what the employee portions will be versus the employer portion. Currently with our other Blue Cross, we're paying about $980, so roughly $1,000. It's about a $250 increase per month per employee, roughly. And that's where those numbers skyrocket. Take that by 700 employees per month, and it gets big. But when you're looking at just your employee piece, it's $70. So your comparison to what a Blue Cross plan will probably end up, it's going to be a wash for the most part, I assume, when it comes to your employee portion.
Can you reiterate on that? Go back. The employee portion and what the district pays.
So in comparison to what they currently have, or just what we pay currently?
No, just what this.
Okay. So on this one, the employee portion is fixed. We cannot change anything on this. This is state mandated. I can't say pay a little bit more and we'll pay a little bit less, or I'll pay more and you pay less. We have no control over that. That's state mandated. They say, hey, if you're employee only, you pay $70. If you're full family, $350, right? And we have to pay the $1,250 no matter what. When it comes to the HSA from the state side, they have their deductibles here. When it comes to the portions, the employee only is a $0 portion. The employer, we have to pay the $1,002, but then the other $41.66 is what your new contribution to your HSA would be. These two numbers totaled together is that $1,251 that you see on this other side, right? We still have to pay the same amount either way. It's just what piece you would see in your HSA contribution every month. So you'll notice anything that deals with children or spouses, they get a higher HSA portion. I don't know why the state does it, but again, this is the state's schedule, and that's what it would have to be if that's the option that we go with. The last few pieces that we have when it comes to this, state retirement benefits using sick leave. Last year when we looked into this, they did not have any sort of health benefits that you could use with your PERSI really. It was kind of a no deal. They still have that same plan that is kind of a no deal if you weren't a state employee since 2003 or something like that. But they do now have a partnership with Pacific Source that will allow you to still get medical through your PERSI sick leave, right? So there's still options there. There are like 7 or 8 different options for dental. So if you really want dental, go for it there. But as far as that, those are those. For those that are doing like a retire, rehire, ideally you'd still just be on our plan. But if you're a full-scale retiree, like you're done with the district completely, full separation, you would have the option of either doing the Pacific Source through the state on that one if we went this with the state, or you go work with an insurance broker and find what other options they can find for you. When it comes to dental coverage, they do not have Willamette, however you say it, that one. They are still with Blue Cross's Delta Dental, so our other option that we currently have, that is who the state works with. In the links here, they do have a little bit of a benefit summary. They do pay 50% of orthodontic procedures up to some degrees. So they've got their own little fine print. So that's the only piece that they have that ties to there. Am I missing anything there? Okay. Really, that's what I got. Again, we're going to send out this survey with these different options. It's going to be a very simplistic survey. It is set, so if you want to change your mind between now and Friday, you can always go back into the link and edit it. But Friday at midnight, the survey will close, so we can use that data for next week's committee meetings and negotiations going forward. Were there any questions on any of this that I can help answer? Yes, ma'am. So moving down from your 7 to 7.5 hour scenario somewhere in here, whether it takes away from sick leave or personal leave days, no, because you're still going to be working the majority of those months. Those policies are tied to the majority of that month. You get a day or you get the 4 days type of deal. All this really would do is kick you out of insurance options. Yes, that is where we're still proposing. It is a choice for you. If you want to stay, that's fine, and you'll have your 2 bumps, but you will not see a $350 pay raise type of deal. It's a one or the other handoff, right? So we do not want to force everybody into this. We want to just present it as an option, and if we have enough takers, great. That helps us be able to open up other avenues. If we don't, we don't. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain why we have to change it to 7 hours versus 7.5 hours?
Yeah. So we first, or Ellen's question was, can I explain why it's 7 hours versus 7.5? Why that kind of change? Why doing that? We first looked into trying to do a cash in lieu of benefits, right? So where we could say, hey, you could optionally choose to forego benefits, and we can just pay you more. We found that in all of our contracts with our insurance providers, that is strictly prohibited. So if we did that, goodbye insurance for everybody, and we're not going to do that. So the only workaround from that is our delineation as to whether you are or are not benefit eligible. And that's where these people are right on that borderline. 7 hours would bring you in at 28 hours a week, just under that 30-hour threshold, which means you would not be benefit eligible. So we can then offer you this pay increase and let you do it that route. Staying at 7.5, you are benefit eligible because you're getting at least 30 hours a week. I have to offer you benefits. If you don't want them, you can still waive them, but I cannot then do a cash in lieu. I cannot give you a pay raise with it. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify a little bit further, so this is an option for our current employees,
Correct.
and those that are hired after this year will be hired at the 7 hours a day. They won't have that option, correct?
From all the conversations that I've had so far, that is kind of the viewpoint. So going forward, there will not be a 7.5 hour classified position anymore. We're trying to grandfather and do away with that. That way we can have that clear delineation of yes, benefits, please take your benefits, and no, we need to make sure we keep our benefit costs down. But again, that's one of those that's going forward. So if any of you were to currently stick with the 7.5 hours and take insurance, great, you would be stuck with it. We'd leave you alone. But when you quit and we refill that position would then be filled at a 7-hour position, no benefits. Yes.
So on the survey slide, was it slide 1? Will the survey was filling out be real clear on what that means? It looks like there is 6 options that don't really have anything to do with each other. And I I'm supposed to choose one.
So your survey is going to come through as a ranking order. Rank it 1, 2, 3, 4. What's your first priority? What's your second priority? What's your third priority? Fourth priority?
Okay, so if I, for example, set ISBT as my priority one, that means I don't want a step in pay.
No, it just means your first thing is you want to make sure we stay with Blue Cross. And then you can say, hey, my second priority is I want 2 bumps.
So you're not saying we're only going to do one of those. You're just asking me what's most important.
Yes, that's all we want.
To do more than one of these things.
We're going to do as much as the dollars will allow us to do. We just want to know, in what order would you prefer,
I understand.
right? That way we can best build all of this for next year for what you guys truly need. Yeah. I think Nicole's getting ready to send that survey out now. It should be very, well, hopefully pretty simple. I tried to keep it simple. Ellen tried to make sure it was simple. If we failed, please let us know, but nicely. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. What is the likelihood that we'd actually be able to afford to switch to the pool insurance? I don't want to put that as my top priority if that's not even a thing. Like it's not an option.
So as of right now, like I said, we're probably going to have to cover $500,000. Okay, so that $500,000 would totally cover this 2-step sticking with IS Blue Cross, or a 1-step there. It would most likely cover all that. It could be doable. Again, all of this is we need to make sure going forward we find any leaks or any excess spending and fix it as best we can. So then next year we really don't have to fork in $500,000 from the fund balance, right? If we get any of these options, right? Any of these people come through. If I get 50% or even less, and I've got maybe, there's 118. So even if, I don't know, take it as you can, but that right there is only $133,000 out of fund balance. Again, that right there is better than $500,000 that I'd have to cover. So there are options. A lot of it, don't want to make it a forceful, but a lot kind of hinges on this piece. How many people really want to do this? If we have quite a few that really want to pay raise, that'll make it easier to make these switches and these options. But again, we're not forcing any of that on anybody. We want them to choose, and we don't want to hurt them if they truly need the insurance. So ideally, we're probably going to be covering roughly about $500,000. How, what, and where that'll be determined through negotiations and everything else there. From what I told transportation this morning, fill out the survey how you want your priorities. If you truly feel like you need state insurance, that's your biggest priority, mark it. It's not going to hurt you. It's just going to show us what you feel you need. And then we can take that data and say, okay, 90% of our staff really want this, or they really need this, or they really need this. And then we can try to plan appropriately to accommodate as best as we can. Am I misspeaking anywhere there, Nicole?
What?
Did I misspeak anywhere there? Okay.
Is there still money available for state buy-in?
This is the last year. If we do not do the state buy-in by the end of June or mid-June, that money's liquidated and gone. So this really is the last Hail Mary. If the district truly wants to get into the state, this is the last year to try to do it. Yeah. And so Mr. Larson brought up the comment again, it's a 5-year lock-in, and that's again why I reiterate, if we have to pull from fund balance this year, we can do that this year, but I can't necessarily say I can do that for 10 years, right? It's something we need to see what we can do to get in line. I know we're already on the right track there. We've got departments that are already looking, hey, how do I more efficiently use or manage my money? And so we're already headed in the right direction. It's just a matter of getting there and getting it going. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Awesome. Well, appreciate your guys' time coming out. When your fellow colleagues ask you about this, please be willing to share the data and the conversations that we've had. That way they can feel or understand exactly what we're going for. Also, that link is going to be recorded. It will be a YouTube video that'll be up there. they can always go back and rewatch it and review these things. So be willing to kind of recommend them look at that as well, right? So they can hear it for themselves. That way everybody can make it on their own judgment. Yes, ma'am.
Can you show the difference between what we get from our state insurance and what we get from our insurance now?
Like your deductibles
No,
or
like everything. The deductibles, it's gonna be on the,
so, and here you're going to be looking at slide 10 is the deductibles for the current insurance, and then slide 12 will be the state insurance. So just a few of the numbers. You got $1,000 for a deductible. Your out-of-pocket maximum is about $4,000 to $8,000 with Blue Cross. You look at the state, your deductible is $350 or $950. Out-of-pocket max is going to be $3,250 or $6,000, right? So there's some give and take in both sides there, but it's kind of what suits you and your needs and how you want to list your priorities.
and do we have quite a few in-network doctors around here for state?
We do. You have to think the cities and the counties are all already on this insurance, so there are those there. Jessica, you had a question?
So if the classified staff lose their insurance, does that also mean they lose their Percy?
No, they will still be Percy eligible. Percy eligibility is at 20 hours a week, so they'll still get that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Say that with that increase of $3.50, that's more towards Percy.
That is a good point. So Jessica, just to iterate a little bit more on that, if they were to lose the insurance, you'll notice their pay increased by $3,000. That $3,000 is still factored into that Percy amount, so it's going to be an increase of Percy contribution and also your end Percy retirement pension, right? So whatever you put in, you'll get back with a little bit of interest, hopefully. Any other questions or concerns?
Is this survey the same survey that are the results of this from the classified portion of this survey that answered your question, do the classified want this or not? Or is this going to be a separate survey?
Let me show you, that way you can see both sides of that.
The certified one doesn't have a classified question.
Correct. We did that to try to help alleviate a little bit.
Thank you.
Let's see. Sorry, I've just got to drill into the right folder here. Okay, see if I can do this. I can. Okay. So when I go through on this, you'll have to excuse me, I'm flying a little blind here, but we can record my email, whatever, that's fine. And then if I go for a classified staff, it will then ask, are you currently working a 7.5-hour workday? Yes, and I don't know will automatically route them to, do you want to take this or not? The no will not, right? So if you say yes, it'll then go into the next piece of, do you want to take a $350 raise versus insurance, right?
So this is how you're asking them. You're not going to approach classified people directly.
We've done this. We've went and we went and met with transportation, who is another big piece of it. Maintenance, we will probably need to want to sit in on one of their meetings this next week, but really we are hoping for a better turnout on some of this, honestly. But we get what we get, and then we'll also be able to go around and answer questions as needed. So yeah, that's all I can answer on that one. Sorry, that's not a great answer, but
A lot of the classified people may or may not even speak English.
yeah. And so I know there's going to be something. Well, I probably need to meet with Jason and them tomorrow and see what we can do to kind of alleviate some of that. Good grief. Okay. Anything else? Going. Gone. Okay. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it.